Hello and thank you for joining me for another story recap. This time we're looking at Ubisoft's 2020 game Watch Dogs Legion. In this video I'll explain exactly what happens in the story of the game for if you're completely new to it or you just need a recap. So I don't mention it every 5 minutes, I'll quickly ask now that if you do like this video, then please do hit the subscribe button below. I make these videos as a hobby and any support for my channel is hugely appreciated. I post videos like this and reviews every 2 weeks. Okay, self-promotion done, let's get hacking. Watch Dogs Legion is the third installment of the Watch Dogs series, but this is very much separate to the first 2 games, meaning you can understand it even if this is your first foray into the series. But if you do wish to recap on the events of Watch Dogs 2 first, then here's a video. And yes, it's from me. Second lot of self-promotion over. This game focuses on the London branch of DedSec, the protagonist hacking group of the previous games. It is set in near future London, suggested to be around 2029. Unlike its previous smaller incarnations, DedSec now seems to operate with groups all around the world and are a much larger operation. It's worth noting, in this game there is no single playable character. We operate as different members of DedSec. It's unique and takes some getting used to, but it is an enjoyable concept. In the opening mission, we control a DedSec operative called Dalton Wolf, who is a little bit like a budget James Bond. He is following a tip from Bagley, which is a very advanced self-aware AI that is working for DedSec, that someone has planted a bomb inside the Houses of Parliament. And given the current state of politics in the UK, I can completely understand why. Some dark political satire there. Let's move on. With the help of Sabine, the group's leader, and some unimportant and unnamed DedSec members, Budget Bond finds and disarms the bomb. However, before Budget Bond can set off for a budget brand martini stirred not shaken, we then discover a map of more bombs that are set to go off around London. Moments later, the DedSec HQ is breached and all those unimportant unnamed members are killed, and Sabine leaves alive. As a failsafe, as leaving, Sabine tells Dalton she is shutting down Bagley and going into hiding. With Dalton left to disarm the remaining bombs, he is confronted by a hologram and 2 drones. The mysterious person reveals themselves to be a representative of a group named 0 Day, whom are behind the bomb threats. The person claims that destruction is always the cure and that London needs a hard reset before detonating the bombs around the city.
It's time for a hard reset.
Budget Bond looks on in budget horror before being budget killed. A news video shows us the aftermath of the bombs, with many Londoners mourning. The government hires a private security group called Albion to restore order on the streets. It's also implied that DedSec have been framed as being behind the attack, and the remaining members are said to have been killed or arrested. The new authority of Albion sees unrest on the streets of London, verging on anarchy, with crime on the rise. In addition, the CTOS system is installed in London. This is an old friend of the series, but if you're new to it, essentially it's a surveillance system that allows the government and Albion to constantly monitor the population. Shortly after this, Sabine resurfaces and hacks into the CTOS system to seek out fellow DedSec members. However, she finds that most of them are dead or have been arrested, though she does find some old contacts and allies of the group. At this point, we, the player, are asked to choose a member of the public to be the Phoenix, if you will, to rise up and refound the DedSec group. Naturally, you would choose someone cool, tough, and, perhaps with some military or hacking experience. Well, instead, I got a little bit confused and didn't really understand what the game was asking me to do, so I chose this middle-aged alcoholic lady. Up the revolution. The lady, who looks like she's just walked off the set of EastEnders, is contacted by Sabine and helps to reactivate the DedSec AI, Bagley. From this point, more followers are recruited and DedSec begin to reclaim part of London from oppression. I won't detail all the bits from this because it is a little bit repetitive. All you need to know is that DedSec is soon back on their feet, not quite the power they once were, but competitive. And to think it all started with this person. It's a very realistic game, and it's also worth noting that it has some of the worst voice acting I've ever witnessed.
Fuck. I'm so sorry.
That's okay, let's just get on with it. We begin to investigate the bombings and discover that they have links to both Nigel Cass, who is the CEO of Albion, and Mary Kelly, who is the leader of a crime group known as Clan Kelly. With the help of video recordings from a former police detective, Caitlyn Lau, we learn that Clan Kelly are running a human trafficking and organ harvesting operation. She suggests that they are working with Albion, who are providing immigrants from deportation centres to Clan Kelly for their evil deeds. One of our operatives enters a hideout of Clan Kelly and witnesses their organ trafficking. In the process, we find and rescue Caitlyn Lau. Our operative then checks if she is okay.
You alright, gal? That fucking arsehole was ready to murk you proper.
Jesus Christ. After a short break to do some touristy things around London, we break into Mary Kelly's resident security system and discover that her human trafficking operation is darker than we think. As well as harvesting organs, she has also enslaved a number of people, each of them fitted with a special microchip which helps her monitor their location and also... yeah. It's pretty dark. Back at DedSec HQ, we move on to our next target, Nigel Cass, CEO of Albion. We get a lead on a guy named Hamish who has some dirt on Albion and is currently in hiding out of fear of Cass. We chat to Hamish via a video link who warns us about some of the things that Cass is capable of doing before we are forced to flee from Albion pursuers. Meanwhile, we recruit an Albion employee to our cause who goes undercover to eavesdrop on an Albion meeting. In the meeting, Cass pitches his new project Themis to government officials. Themis involves introducing new drones which can seek out and anticipate crimes before they happen. The police commissioner, however, isn't convinced, so naturally, Nigel Cass kills him. That's business. Next, we break into Tidis, which is the company developing the drones. There we learn the extent and danger of Cass's new drones, and that they can be used to target anyone at any time. Meanwhile, with the help of an independent hacker and activist called Nout, we are put on the trail of Skye Larson, a genius scientist and CEO of Brokertech. She, like Cass, is also working on a secret project. This one is known as Daybreak. In investigating Larson's home, we learned that her Daybreak program includes trapping people inside cyberspace and turning them into AIs. She first used this on her mum, who we discover being used as a very advanced household smart speaker and free by destroying her upon request. This means that all living AIs were essentially once a person, including Bagley. We find Skye Larson and discover that she is dying and thus is on life support. She asks us, instead of killing her, to upload her into her Daybreak program, meaning she can live on as an AI and continue her work. Frankly, as I thought it was all a little bit messed up, I turned off her life support, ending her life and in turn the Daybreak program. Meanwhile, one of our operatives is contacted by an employee of SIRS who claim that he can help prove that DedSec were framed for the bombings. SIRS are an intelligence agency in charge of surveillance around London. We track down the informant, who is Richard Malik. He claims that Zero Day are made up of rogue SIRS agents and wishes to help us expose them. After establishing a working relationship with Malik, he informs us that he has discovered that the head of Zero Day is Emma Child, director of SIRS. After tracking down Child, she claims Malik has duped us both and plays us a recording of him meeting Nigel Cass. In the meeting, he claims he is attempting to infiltrate DedSec.
All right. I'm infiltrating a terrorist group called DedSec.
While on the trail of Malik, he contacts us and claims he wanted us to see the recording, and in turn, he has learned our identities and we are now known to the authorities. He then detonates a bomb in the building where Emma Child is, killing her and assuming control of SIRS in the process. And once again, framing DedSec for the bombing. However, with Bagley's help, we managed to find incriminating evidence that Malik was behind the recent bombing, and also discover his location. We capture Malik, but he reveals that he is not behind Zero Day or the earlier bombings, just the most recent one. He remains imprisoned at DedSec HQ for the rest of the game. Back with Mary Kelly, we discover evidence that she provided the explosives to Zero Day in return for promised power by the terrorist group. We find and confront the crime lord, who seems to welcome the idea of being arrested by the police, likely knowing that she'll be later freed. Not wanting her to get away with it, Caitlyn now decides not to arrest her and instead lets Mary's slaves get their revenge on the evil crime lord. With Hamish's help, after compiling enough evidence on Nigel Cass's involvement in the bombings, DedSec decides to put together a film and broadcast it around London, exposing Cass's crimes. Because of this, he goes into hiding in the Tower of London, forcing us to infiltrate the fortress in order to kill him. I wrongly assumed that this would be relatively straightforward, as Cass goes all Terminator on us and engages us in a pretty long and intense boss fight. Unlike us though, Cass cannot reload from his last checkpoint, and I win. Back at DedSec HQ with the team celebrating, we are contacted once again by Zero Day, who hack and steal all of our tech and data that we've amassed during the game. We track down the source of the hack and subsequently the base of Zero Day, and at this point I feel very silly for missing the actually pretty obvious plot twist. Sabine, the leader of DedSec, who we've only ever spoken to via video calls since the bombings, is actually the person behind Zero Day. She coordinated the bombings with Cass in return for access to Albion's filament technology network. Cass then double-crossed her. She then started DedSec up all over again purely as a way to get revenge on Cass and recover the technology that she needed. Still with me? With all the technology promised in her possession, Sabine, who is solely Zero Day, begins to destroy London. Her plan is to destroy all technology and then rebuild society. Her motive is never really explained any more than that. To achieve this, she needs Bagley. The AI learns that she has developed a patch that will allow her to use the AI to exploit any vulnerable systems linked to the CTOS system. I know that this is all a little bit confusing, just stick with me. The remaining members of DedSec plan to shut Bagley down so that he can't be used by Sabine. To do so, we must hack the Bloom Tower. While doing this, you guessed it, Sabine arrives. After the Zero Day leader spouts some nonsensical rubbish, our operative smartly hacks a wing of the tower, causing Sabine to fall. The antagonist then gives a strange smile, the reason for, I'm still unsure, before plummeting to her assumed death below in the chaotic London streets. And it's time for another short break to hear some wonderful voice acting.
Shit. Oh well.
After this, we managed to shut down Bagley and say an emotional goodbye to our AI companion. With the threat of Zero Day gone, the credits roll and a news report reveals that DedSec were behind the threat being repelled, meaning their name has been restored. Albion's influence is also negated and London begins to get back to normal. In a post-credit scene, the DedSec members manage to bring a version of Bagley, unaffected by Sabine's patch, back online. Finally, in a bonus mission which lots of gamers seem to miss, Bagley learns of his true identity. His mind is based on Sky Larson's brother, Bradley. Bradley was experimented on by his sister, which then caused dementia. He is now housed in a hotel in St. Pancras, and Bagley visits him and reminds him of the things that he once loved, which seems to resonate with Bradley. And on that slightly happy note, the game ends. For more videos just like this, then please do hit subscribe. Thank you.